First question is, tell me about the differences between version 1.3 and version 1.4. Now, there are two big differences, and you want to know specifically about the stand. I'll hit the first difference, which is just the the first difference is the DC power supply inside the machine. It's currently 35 watts. That's what was available when we invented this machine. Since then, the company that makes them, they make super high-end sealed power supplies have gone to 60 watts. That allows us to have the machine making espresso, closing all the valves, and have USB power on all the time, or refilling the water tank all the time. So currently in 1.3, if you run out of water, the machine tablet will change and say refilling, and you can't make espresso while it's refilling. So that's a slight annoyance that goes away in 1.4. To talk about the tablet stand, this is the current Steely stand that we've been using for the past 3.5 years, and it has this magnet, and the magnet has a little position. There's a steel plate underneath here that guides it, so you put it in here. And the advantage here is that you can take the tablet off like I'm doing and put it right in the camera, or take it around, tilt it around like this. The disadvantage is someone can steal it, or conceivably it could get broken. With version 1.4, we're switching to the D1XL tablet stand, but we've modified it slightly. So it's a piece of bent metal like this. The tablet gets glued to it. And so the tablet is permanently attached, but the tablet is permanently attached here as well. The difference is that instead of a magnet to connect it here, there's 3 screw holes. We're going to give you a Torx T10 screwdriver with it. And so you can screw down the tablet if you like. You can also just put a rubber pad on the bottom of the tablet stand, and it will sit quite nicely. So that's the major difference we did on the D1XL stand, moving from previous versions to 1.4, is I've lowered the angle so that the tablet stand comes in level with the bottom of the tablet. So what that lets you do, I don't have one here right now, sorry. What that lets you do though is put the tablet, this is with, imagine I have the 1.4, on a table like this, and it sits really solidly. So the idea with version 1.4 and the tablet is you can, if you want, not have the tablet on the machine at all, you can put it aside, or you can put the tablet into a drawer. So the group head controller lets you do everything that you'd want to do to make coffee. It does not let you change presets. So the main reason to use the tablet is to change presets. The other reason is to see how your shop went. Now, what I'm thinking is quite a few people are going to do this. They're going to have the tablet nearby while they make coffee, obviously not in front of their pitcher rinser. But I think people are going to leave it nearby and then just take a look at the shop, use an external USB charger, put it away if they want to. Certainly the machine is even less tall, more streamlined without the tablet, and some people prefer that look. I have another question, which is if you get the white D1XL and you don't want to screw the tablet stand in, is there an option? So the obvious option is you go on Amazon, you buy whatever you want. There's thousands of tablet stands, and one of the reasons that we don't glue it on was for you to be able to choose what you want. Now, most people use what we use, so we started gluing it on with version 1.4. If you don't want it glued on, fine, just indicate I don't want it glued on. Now, if you want a non-permanent stand for your tablet, like not even glued on, then you should just buy something from Amazon. My favorite, especially for the white D1XL, because there's natural wood handles, you can find tablet stands that are just a slab of wood with a slot cut in them, and then the tablet just sits in the slot like that. And the natural wood looks great, and those things are like $20. So that would be my recommendation for a really nice stand for the white D1XL that's not permanent. All right, so Erica's follow-up question is, can you use the espresso machine without the tablet? Absolutely, you can just, if I turn the tablet off here and take it away, okay, at this point, I'm using the espresso. That's the flush function. I'll turn steam on. And everything just works as an espresso machine. Okay? This is in fact the safety requirement is the tablet is fully optional or can be off. But you notice that if the tablet is on, it is tracking. Let me turn the brightness down on this. Okay. So the tablet tracks whatever's happening to the machine, but does not pilot it. Yeah, and to be clear also, this cable right here has always only been a USB charging cable. It does not have any data communications with the Espresso machine. The communications between the tablet and the Espresso machine are wireless. It's over Bluetooth. And you can use your own charger and put it elsewhere if you like. The one thing you don't want to do is have this battery constantly dying, like any tablet that will shorten the battery life. Next question is, why do I not make or sell any espresso levelers? So first of all, espresso levelers are kind of owned by Sasha Seshik and the OCD tool, who does a spinning thing. He invented that in order to get perfect scores in the World Barista Championships, and that thing does that job perfectly. If you want to have a level espresso on the top, that's the tool to get, the OCD. It's very popular. Now, I don't like it because I find that it compresses the grounds and uneven pattern and makes the coffee worse. So we are in the process of making our own tool. This is a darker wood than the final one will be, but this is what I call a puck rake, because after you grind with the niche, you just rake the top of it to even it out, and that's all you're doing. So that's going to be our grounds leveling tool. I think it's $29 online, and we hope to have it in a few months. Before it's out, what you can do, and I highly recommend it, if you can see these needles here, right there. I have two cameras if you're wondering what I'm doing. These needles are acupuncture needles, and you can buy them off Amazon, 40 of them for $10 at various diameters. These are the 0.4 millimeter ones. They are completely food safe, body safe. And if you get yourself a wine cork and just screw some holes into it, you can make a poor man's version of this, and it works exactly the same as this. Only it'll cost you $10 to homebrew it. And then eventually, if you want, you can buy ours or not. All right, what's the situation with mirror panels? The situation with mirror panels is that we cannot get what I call yield that's good enough for them. So we had one company for a long time that was making them, and they were filling a large number. And then when we went and reviewed how many we had, we initially were filling 30%, but they were filling a lot more than that. And their defect rate kept going up and up and up until they said, we won't make these for you anymore. At which point we then went to two other suppliers. They went and made them, and then we found our defect rate was 80% with those. We then went to 10 more suppliers and ordered samples from all of them to make it, and all of them are 80 to 90% failures. So the net is that we have a small number of perfect samples, about I think 50 of them, but they are all D1 XL front panels. So we will eventually be making perfect D1 XL machines, but they will be more expensive because it's literally like a 40-to-1 ratio on those things. And that's just not doable. We can't be throwing out 39 panels in order to have one good one. So we're despairing that we'll never actually make perfect mirror panels that are mirrored here and here again. Maybe someday we will, but I don't see it. One of the issues also is the mirror panel is more delicate, so you have to be more careful about cleaning it. And most industrial stuff you can see here is brushed. So having this be brushed and then putting a high quality optical mirror here is what we prefer, and it's what we're doing now for all machines. The reviews are quite good on that because this is also a fingerprint magnet. That's what mirrors are. So it's nice to have brush steel on most of the stuff, and then where you need it, which is to look up into the shot, that's an optical mirror that's very low distortion, and if you crack it or scratch it or break it, it's fine. We send you a new one, you put it back on. So the concern is that the glued on mirror would be hard to clean due to the added mirror height. The new mirror is at 0.7, no, it's 1 millimeter thick, isn't it? we tried many different thicknesses, and the current mirror is 1 millimeter thick. So it doesn't add much in the way of thickness. It overlaps the outside. I haven't seen any comments from anyone that the mirror is hard to clean. A bit of Windex, just like any bathroom mirror, should do the job. All right, so let me start espresso. So that was like 2-3 second start, and that was my first shot of the day. Okay, but I had stopped and noticed it stopped instantly. All right, so there's no wind down after starting, and 2 seconds. Oh, I think I have this configured right now for 2 seconds. In fact, why don't I right now talk about the fast start, the cafe mode, because that's super interesting. All right, so I hit settings, and then I'm on machine, and then I hit calibrate. I know it's a little bit buried. More. Okay, so here I am with the new calibrate page, and there's a bunch of new settings here, and there's also a voltage. Let me talk about the voltage first, because this can affect 1.0 people. So the biggest thing we did when going from version 1.0 to 1.1, there's 2 things we did. One is we added an electrician's clamp on the inside on 1.1 so we can measure current draw. And the second thing is we added future compatibility for the group head controller. That's the main difference between 1.0 and 1.1. So 1.0 machines do not know what voltage the heaters are. Sorry, we didn't know that at the time because we didn't have that. So if you have a 1.0 machine and it doesn't know what voltage it is, the first time you run the app, it's going to take you directly to this page. And right here where it says voltage, there will be 2 buttons, set to 220, set to 230, or set to 120. It's not going to break anything if you do the wrong thing. You won't go on fire. It's just calibrating the machine to what you've got right there. Okay, and you should set it, and then you set it once, and it's good forever. Okay. Now the next thing is these 4 settings. Let me explain what these 4 settings do and what cafe defaults are and home defaults are. When the machine first starts up, when you press the espresso button, 2 things happen. First, the hot water heater heats up to about 110 Celsius under pressure. Then, after that, it passes water through all the way right behind the group head and tests the water temperature again. And if that water temperature isn't good enough, it dumps it back into the water tank. Now in home mode, which is the home defaults, which are the defaults when you receive the machine, the water heater is kept at 80 Celsius in order to keep power consumption down a little bit and heat inside the chassis. And we also aim for the absolute best temperature accuracy. So those 2 steps, let me walk you through what happens. The heater, when you press espresso, heats from 80 Celsius to 110. This can take about 10 seconds. And water is slowly trickling through. Now we're measuring with a metal temperature sensor on the heater when it hits when we know to go to the next stage. So that first stage is just testing the metal temperature of the heater. That's what that preheat test is. Okay? And a small amount of water is going through. If you put tons of water through at that stage, then you'd be cooling the heater as you're trying to heat the heater. So you don't want to do that. And then as soon as the metal is at the right temperature, we go to the heater test stage, when we then put water through and we put it on home mode at 2 milliliters per second. Then we are heating the tubes and the valves and anything that's right before the coffee puck, because the only way to heat those parts is to put hot water through them. And at that point, we give up to another 10 seconds to get the water within 0.1 Celsius of the goal. Now, often your first shot of the day is going to take 20 seconds, right? 10 seconds to heat it up the first time, 10 seconds again. And that's because we're just going for the absolute best quality. And since you're at home, we think it's worth waiting another 10, 15 seconds to get the best temperature accuracy possible. Now, since we did that with 1.0, our algorithms have gotten better. And the first stage, we can't do that much about. We have to bring the heater up to temperature. But if you put it in cafe mode, the heater is now at 99 Celsius. And so it only has to go from 99 Celsius to 110 Celsius, which is super fast, 2-3 seconds the first time. Actually, I think it takes 5 seconds for me to go up to temperature for the very first shot of the day. And then the second step was all about temperature accuracy, getting the valves hot, getting everything hot. Now that I've cut back to 1 second. And the reason is when that hot water goes through and it hits the group head, we're finding that the accuracy is really good. In fact, there's no loss in temperature accuracy at all. And so I don't see a big reason to have that second heater test last a long time unless I really need it to be perfect. I do recommend, if you're using cafe mode, for the first shot of the day, that you should flush. Okay. Just flush for a few seconds. That does two things. That will fill the water tubes up so that all the air gaps are gone. But now I've got hot water that's flushed through, that's sitting on all the valves, all the plastics, and warming everything up. So when you finally go to make your coffee now, it's fairly fast, right? 2 seconds is what it took because I heated everything with that flush. I want to say one more thing about the heater test, which is the second stage. The heater test happens at a certain flow rate. Now think of water going through the hot water heater, getting mixed, and then going to a sensor and then flushing down. Okay, that's what's happening during heater test until this valve says, okay, temperature okay, and then the water goes to the coffee puck. Now, in the past, when you start your espresso, you've always seen the flow rate climb for about 2 seconds. And the reason is the pump has got to climb up, there's airspace to get rid of. And so the flow rate at the start of the shot takes a few seconds, like 2 seconds, to climb up to the speed you want. Now that is gone if you use the cafe mode. And the reason it's gone is because, let's say you're doing a pre-infusion flow rate of 4 milliliters per second, that's the default. And the cafe mode is set to do a heater test at 4 milliliters per second. That means the hot water goes through the heater, through the mixer, hits the valve, and it's already going 4 milliliters per second. So when the temperature is right, it just flips, and the existing water just hits it at 4 milliliters per second. So the thing about this is it means your pure infusions will be slightly shorter, but where it really has an effect is if you're using a fast pre-infusion, right? You're trying to emulate old Italian espresso machines that are 6 or 8 milliliter per second pre-infusions. Previously, you were starting at 0 and trying to climb to 8 milliliters per second, and that was taking 3 or 4 seconds. Now that's happening through your heater test stage. So what I recommend you do, and we're still experimenting with this, all of us together, is have the heater test flow rate, and I'll bring it up again. Okay, so I'm talking about the thing here on the bottom right. That is currently set to 4 milliliters per second. I think we want to set that, or you want to set that to the flow rate of your current shots pre-infusion. So if you're doing a profile that's 8 milliliters per second, set that to 8. And what that will do is give you that big rush of water so it quickly compacts the puck, as opposed to a ramp up of water that goes quick and then compacts the puck. So that should give you an emulation of the older machines that's more accurate to how those machines work. And the short-term results, the results people have talked about is, yes, in fact, their pre-infusions are going faster, are ending faster, and the puck appears to be compressing even more. The shot's a little slower. And the real goal here from an emulating old machines standpoint is to make a shot that's super thick and syrupy. And it appears that slamming the puck at the very beginning is an element of that. Okay, just whack, compress it as fast as possible. So that's a really interesting new side effect of this cafe mode that I really like. Now, I'm tempted, we'll see, because we just released this a week ago, I am tempted to make this heater test flow rate match your pre-infusion automatically. And we might do that in a month, unless we find that there's any downsides. But until I do that as a programmer and you guys come back to me and say it works well, it's going to be manual here. Okay. And the heater test timeout for the faster flow rates, you might need to put it to 3 or 4 seconds, right? Because the pump still needs to ramp up to that. And you want the flow rate to be at the goal when that valve opens and puts water on the puck. Was that information overload? You guys got all that? And if you decide to go back to something else, you can always hit the defaults. You can also lower your power consumption, which I tried for a week, and I lowered the hot water heater to 60 Celsius. My power consumption, I think, was 0.7 amps while the machine was hot, and the espresso start time was the same as 80. So it took me about 20 seconds to make my first shot when I did that. That didn't bother me because I was using less electricity. The machine was more eco. There you go. Now you have control over that. So Erica asks, she has a Breville dual boiler, otherwise known as the BDB. I do have one. And what are the honest differences you should expect when you get the decent? And she wants to know about steaming, latte art, taste, that sort of thing. Okay, so I very much like the Breville. You're not going to hear me badmouth it. In fact, the reason we make such an expensive machine is because for the price, which is about $1,000, I think the Breville is unbeatable. So if you're looking to spend less than $1,200, just do not consider an E61. Don't buy anything else. Just buy the Breville dual boiler. It's a really excellent machine for the price. It's now 20-year-old design, unchanged, and what can I say? Okay, so as far as the Breville in terms of flavor and the taste, now the main thing about the Breville is you do not have feedback. Now that is the case for virtually every machine out there. The reason that's important is that making good espresso is a skill that you need to develop. It requires dialing in the grind, preparing the portafilter, and knowing how to do the shot correctly. Okay, so if you are coming to the Breville, like say you're James Hoffman and you have a world of experience of making great coffee on a variety of machines, James can walk up to a Breville dual boiler and make excellent coffee. It has a pre-infusion that is timed, and then it goes to a normal 9-bar shot, and nothing at all wrong with that. If you are not somebody with that experience, you may struggle. And if you watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos of people with Brevilles, you will see shots that look terrible. Now you can tell they look terrible because the water is speeding up and slowing down, or the water is going from dark brown to light brown very quickly. Both those are signs that the shot has fallen apart. The coffee is going to be bad tasting. Now, I'm a pretty advanced guy, so I know to look for those things, and I know what to do to fix that if I were doing it myself. But a lot of people would be lost at that point. So that's number one, and that goes for any machine, which is when your shot goes bad, how do you know what to do? With the decent espresso machine, we'll show you in a little bit, but the charts on the screen show you what happened with the shot. And when you buy the machine, you get invited to our forum. People who make bad shots, which is normal, when they get the machine, will take a photograph, post it, say, what should I do? And people help them. And I would say without exception, and then this is the remit of the company, if you buy a decent espresso machine, we will get you making the best coffee of your life. That is what we're doing. We're not selling you a machine, we're selling you the best coffee of your life, and we'll get you there. So that's a very, very big thing. Breville obviously is not going to do that. In fact, I don't think any other company is going to take you to making good coffee at the end. Okay, now talk a bit more about Breville versus the decent espresso machine. Breville has one shot profile, and I'm going to pull up. If I go to settings here, presets, and I choose classic Italian espresso, this is pretty much the Breville profile. This is what you have on the Breville dual boiler, except you wouldn't have automatic pre-infusion exit. They exit based on a timer. It's not bad. But you have some pre-infusion, and you have 9 bars until the shot ends. That is the single only recipe you have on that machine. It is also, by the way, the single only recipe that you have on virtually every machine out there. Couple things. One is all espresso pucks erode as you make coffee, right? Coffee material goes into your cup. What that means is the ability of the coffee to fight water pressure decreases and the water speed increases. That's why the coffee goes from dark to less dark to lighter, and it seems like it does it faster and faster, right? You're dark, 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 and then medium dark, and then a couple seconds later, you're making something that's color that wood. And one of the reasons for that is this profile, this 9-bar profile. That is pushing water on the puck at a constant pressure. even as the coffee puck is losing material and losing the ability to resist that pressure. This is the single worst thing that ever happened to coffee, to espresso. Before the 9-bar machine, we had lever machines. So you would pull on a lever, and without a spring, when you saw the water going faster, you would lighten up on the muscle. Okay? With lever machines, you could compensate for the erosion of the puck. And lever machines make fantastic coffee for that reason. Now, what happened is people got tired or didn't want the skill of holding, so the espresso machine designers made springs that mimicked pretty well what you were supposed to do. So a lot of pressure at the start and declining pressure afterwards. This is why lever machines make great espresso, is because this pressure profile is bad. Now, what you want to do is decline. You want to do this. You want your shot to pre-infuse, hold for a certain amount of time, not that long really, okay? And then you want it to decline. Now, what I've just made there is in fact a lever profile. Okay, and I've just hit OK by accident. And now this espresso machine is making a spring lever shot. These just taste better. It's just that's how it is. Lever shots make better tasting shots than flat 9-bar. So that is the single biggest reason to buy a lever machine or a decent espresso machine, is that honoring the fact that the coffee puck changes over the espresso with some change to what you're doing will make better coffee. In terms of taste, it will remove acidity. It will also give you more flavor in the mouth. Now, I'm talking about so far medium to medium dark, classic roast. That's how all those machines were made to, all those machines were made to make those beans really good. Now, if you like medium light to light beans, in general, 9-bar machines are not a great idea. And the reason is that the lighter the roast, the less it is able to resist water pressure, the more it's going to channel and go light very quickly. In general, lighter roasts need a gentler treatment. And the super fancy cafes will often lower the pressure on their machines to say 6-bar when they're making light roasts, or increase the flow rate, or a number of other things. So the decent espresso machine, one of the real goals for me was to make a machine that allowed us to pull lighter roast coffee without all that unpleasant vegetable acidic flavors. Before I had the decent espresso machine, Bugs and I went on a tour of Portland, and consistently the tasting notes at cafes was like asparagus, artichoke, lemon juice, grapefruit pith. Just, those are not good things. But that's what virtually every cafe was cranking out, because they were all using 9-bar machines. Okay? That is not the flavor of the coffee you're going to get with this machine. If you're using light roast, we give you the various presets that pull those well. And when we talk about lighter versus medium dark roasts are chocolate to burn flavors, sometimes caramel flavors, and then lighter roasts, you'll get vegetable flavors or fruit flavors and lighter roasting flavors like toffee or caramel, as opposed to dark chocolate. You wouldn't get that. So depending on your flavor preferences and what you want to experiment in, there it is. So that, in a very long explanation, is not just decent against the Breville, but decent against everybody else. Why would you want the power on this machine? And the reason is it will help you make better coffee by helping you make better coffee, but also by having the technology to treat the coffee right. This, by the way, Slayer is the company that really started this, and Synezo has done it too, which is to have control over the flow rate. Now, they did it during pre-infusion, but they opened this whole Pandora's box of machines designed to make a different style of coffee. And I was very much inspired by that and ran with it in the creation of this machine. Next question is, am I planning on introducing new versions of the machine anytime soon? So we do runs every 6 months. So every 6 months, something changes. Now, with the 1.0 machine, our goal was, and we took 4 years to build it, to make a machine that could emulate anything, called a Turing-complete machine after Turing-complete computers. And we largely succeeded. So the coffee coming out of a 1.0 machine is the same coffee quality coming out of a 1.3 and 1.4 machine. The only difference between them in terms of coffee is a 4-degree reduction in space above this, and people sell little spacers that make them behave the same. And in fact, with every machine we come out with, we go to great pains to make sure that you can upgrade your existing machine to the new features if you like. We just a few days ago announced the group head controller upgrade. You will also notice that every 6 months, our machines get more expensive. And two reasons for that. One is when we launched, we are just going to be honest about it, we underpriced ourselves. Right? We started quite cheaply, in fact, so cheaply we couldn't launch the original model. And when we launched the first 1.0 machine, we were not making money with it. The goal was to get the machine out there and start getting vibes and people reviewing it, but it was not sustainable to sell a machine at that price. Since then, what our audience has been telling us is that they want better and better. That's the machine they want. And so at each 6-month interval, we look and see how can we make the machine better, and invariably this makes it more expensive. Right? So for example, the tablet on version 1.3 was, I think, $8 more expensive. It's not much, but everything goes in that direction. Everything we do with each version, the price goes up. So for example, the flow constrictors changed from, I think, $3 each to $9 each, and we've got 3 of them in there. So it's $27 of those, and that's because we switched from commercial grade to jet airplane grade flow constrictors to get even greater accuracy. So the longer you wait, the more the machine is going to cost. That's how it is. And the machine is going to keep getting better. Software upgrades are free, but bear that in mind. So next, in terms of 1.5, what we are planning, the machine is now fairly mature. The main thing we are changing is the water dispersion parts inside here are brass. And depending on your water, they can tarnish and be quite ugly, and it's not really a lot of fun to clean brass. It doesn't affect the flavor of the coffee, but it's not nice to look at tarnished brass. Also, since we launched this machine 4 years ago, the emphasis back then was temperature stability, a single uniform temperature through the whole shot. Since then, we have achieved that, and now we're aiming for temperature variability on demand. So we can emulate machines, and we can also experiment and see what that does with flavor. And so what we have been doing with each version is decreasing the amount of mass in the group head. As the more mass that's here, the harder it is to change the temperature quickly. So version 1.5 has 2 brass parts in here changing to a resin called Ultim. And that will be standard in 1.5, but it will also be a part that we will sell cheaply to all existing customers. It's 1 screw you take out, they both fall out, you put the new Ultim pieces in, you screw it back in, you're there. So if you have a 1.3 or 1.4 and you want to upgrade to this new part, people are saying great things about it, great. There is, we think, a slight improvement on preventing what's called donut-shaped extractions. So coffee naturally tends to, espresso naturally tends to extract from the outside in. And that, we think, is because coffee is in a mound when you grind it. And while you repair that, there's more density in the center. The new parts are slightly focusing a bit more water toward the center to overcome the increased density of the center of the puck. And we're seeing more even starts of extractions. And Stefan Reeves has posted photographs and extensive studies and videos because he was part of the team that was evaluating the dozen or so variations. So it's not like it's going to make bad coffee your current machine, but there's always a little bit of room for improvement. Beyond that, we do not have any customer-facing improvements currently planned. The current machine, well, last year was taking us 20 hours to make. Now it's taking us 16 hours to make with version 1.3. We think that's going to drop to about 14, 13 hours with version 1.4. We need to keep dropping that time. That's what we're doing. And we're switching internally from pieces that are milled with a computer to molded and stuff you don't need to know about. Doesn't change the quality at all, but it drops the price for us because the repairability and the speed of assembly goes down, which is good because I don't want 100 employees. I'm quite happy with 15 people. And if I can get machines built in 5-6 hours, then that drops my costs. It allows me to repair your machines faster. That's a good thing. And our sales have gone up threefold over the last year. So we have to figure out how to make these machines faster or hire 3 times more people. No, steaming time. So the next question is, does steaming time depend on technique? It does not. Simply put, unless you've got the steam wand out of the milk, splashing milk everywhere, there's heat transfer happening. So it doesn't really matter what your technique is. Time to get to a certain temperature is constant, irrespective of your technique. I do want to mention one thing, which is with the new steam, which is about a third faster, 25% to 33% faster, it is less easy to make microfoam. And I want to go back to the Breville comment. The Breville steam is quite slow. You're looking at about a minute to make a latte. But the advantage of that is it's this really gentle steam. So you can just sort of sit there and watch the milk barely churn, but it's making very fine foam because there's no violence to the steam. And that's quite nice. And our steam, while stronger than the Breville, instead of 55, 60 seconds, we were in the 46, 48 seconds range for a long time with our machine. And it made really good microfoam really, really easily without much skill. Now we're more in the 32 to 35 second range, and there's faster heating. So you need a little bit more skill to make good microfoam at those speeds with the current steam wand tip. The steam wand tip that comes with the DE1 is single hole. Okay, and the reason it is single hole is because that is quite easy to make microfoam with. If you put more holes in, there's a common failure mode, which is you're steaming like this, and if one of the holes gets above the milk, it'll go and make big bubbles. So multiple holes or steam that comes out like this as opposed to like this it requires more talent, okay? Which is why I've been working with Zubing, who is the inventor of the force tamper, and he is milling all sorts of steam wand tips. And I don't think you can see it here, but I'm not gonna take it off, but this is a blade steam wand tip, and this is coming soon. So this has got a single slot, and the advantage of this is that the steam is still gonna go straight out. Yeah, you can see it. You can see how it's still a narrow spray out like this, but it's a much larger cut. And the larger cut means less violence to your milk. And so it's much easier to make microfoam more like the slower steam, but you don't sacrifice the time. Now, the downside is your milk will be a little bit wetter. Because it's a larger slot, there's less pressure, and so the steam is less dry. So it's always a bargain in life, right? So in order to make the steam easier, it has to be less violent. Less violent means more wet. The drier it is, the more violent it is, the harder it is to make good microfoam. So if you can make good microfoam with a single hole with the new firmware, it will be the fastest and the driest and the least diluted milk possible. But if you're having trouble, you can consider the 3-hole steam wand tip we sell, or the blade that's coming soon. You will have a little bit more dilution, but your foam will be easier to make perfect. Another question about steam: what's the advantage of changing the flow rate on the steam? So the flow rate on the steam is related to a discovery we made about steam. And let me explain this for a little bit. So our steam heater looks more or less like this, a little bit taller, and it has a stainless steel tube, 1.2 meters of it, coiled with a heating element coiled around it. Now, we cranked it up to 160 Celsius. You put water in, and it flashes the steam and comes out. Now, you would think that if you increase the flow rate on that, that you would cool the heater down or end up with wetter steam. But that's actually not what happens. The insight we got with a lot of R&D is that as you increase the flow rate, you also increase the pressure. Okay, let me explain why. Because as water goes in, it flashes the steam, and it might go in and flash the steam here. And when it flashes the steam here, all this hot surface gets not used, because as soon as it flashes the steam, it rushes out. So you actually want to time your flow rate so that the water is getting hotter, 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 and flashes the steam kind of at the end. When it hits the end there, it flashes the steam. There's not much water around. The steam is very dry. Early on, that's not the case. Now, there's a virtuous circle that happens, which is the hotter you can get that steam to go here before it flashes, the more the pressure increases. And the more the pressure increases, the more the boiling point increases. And the more the boiling point increases, the further you can push the water before it flashes the steam. So follow me here. Increase the flow rate, increases the boiling point, increases the pressure, increases the energy transfer. Okay, until a point where that doesn't happen anymore because now you've gone beyond the heater. So that was a huge revelation for us, and that's the reason that our steam times went down 20–30% with the new firmware, is that we changed control models completely to one that is purely flow controlled as opposed to being pressure controlled. And by getting the flow at a point where the pressure is as high as you can tolerate it, you're getting the driest, most energy transfer steam that you can get. So if you go to 1.2 mils per second flow rate and you like the steam you're getting, it's very dry, then great. But if your steam is quite wet at that flow rate, it means that the water is not flashing steam. You're pushing too much water in, more than the steam heater can cope with, in which case drop to 1.0 mils per second. With this steam wand, I've been doing 1.0 steam per second, 1.0 mils per second, and just watch the timer, see if it changes at all. Now, what I found with me is that I was 32 seconds to heat a 150 mil latte to 60 Celsius. And I got that timing, 32 seconds, whether I was at 1 mil per second or 1.2 mils per second, same exact time. So what that tells me is that the faster flow rate, I have more dilution. Right? So I'm putting more water in to achieve the same temperature and the same time. Well, I don't want water in my coffee. I want milk in my coffee in my coffee, not water. So that's how you want to dial that in, is essentially if you want to start at the highest flow rate and then just dial it back until your timings start to increase again. And now you found the optimal one. Now, I'm sorry, we can't do this for you automatically because it just depends on too many factors, not least of which is the exact amperage that you have at your house, your voltage and amperage, and 220 versus 110, but also the water content, mineral content, your altitude. There's a lot of variables. So we take a best guess. It seems to work for most people, but you might be able to fine tune it in a bit more. I will also mention that when you say 0.8, 10, 12, those are hints to the firmware. It may or may not do them. It is not absolute control. Bradley asked, with the blooming profile, why is the start of blooming so hot? And the reason is that it's Scott Rayo who did that profile, and he's a guy who likes pour over flavors, okay? And he likes long extractions. That is a flavor preference. I find that his style of coffee tastes too much like pour over. I prefer espresso. And so I tend to make profiles that have lower temperatures. And you can see that in the variety of profiles, right? My profiles tend to be 88 to 92. Scott's tend to be 94 to 98 Celsius at the start. That is just an opinion. And if you prefer a lower temperature at the start, go with it. Different coffees extract differently. That's why that's there. So here I am on the normal page, the normal configuration page. I've hit the default profile and I hit pressure, okay? And this is what our editor has always looked like. Now there is a new hidden feature, which is if you tap on temperature, there we go, then temperature here is now shown. Now this is the temperature of the shot at the puck at each stage. And pre-infusion has got two numbers. And the reason there's two numbers is there's a temperature for the start and temperature at the end, because that is the most important part of the coffee, is the very first 10 seconds. So we wanted to control that. And if you tap any of these numbers, you get this chart here, and then you can tap away, okay, to change, that's a bit too much, okay, to change the temperatures as you want them. And then the changes are then reflected here. If you've made stupid changes like I just did, then you can tap temperature. And now the feature's gone off, and that temperature here is once again global. And if you tap it back on, it has reset everything to be the global temperature. So mess up your temperatures, just double tap the thermometer and you'll reset it back to normal defaults. What I want to show you, which is new, and what I want to show you, and a lot of people don't understand this, is that if this profile doesn't do what you want, you can convert it to an advanced profile. So if I go to presets, okay, and then I hit plus to create a preset, I can create pressure, flow, or advanced. And if I hit an advanced profile, there's a little note here, it will automatically copy everything about the profile right in here. Okay, so these are the 3 steps I had, and everything was copied in. So this is how you can, it's kind of like WordPerfect reveal codes. If you remember how that worked, I've just now revealed everything about the profile and how it works. And the new feature I'm working on is this right here. And this will work later this afternoon. And so previously, when you went to advanced shots, you lost the ability to stop an espresso based on the mountain cup. And that was annoying. And the reason that you lost that is because with advanced shots, I didn't know whether you had any pre-infusion or how many steps. So I just did total water volume. And that was never very accurate because there can be empty air or water in the group head. So total water volume could vary a bit. The normal shot volume, so if I go back here and I go to default, so here stop at pour is based on how much here pours. So pre-infusion will rise, end automatically on pressure, and then we count how much water comes out. The reason I do that is after pre-infusion ends, the puck is saturated, water in is water out. So that number ends up being pretty accurate. With advanced shots, you lose that capability, and that was annoying. So that is going to be fixed later this afternoon, so that when you go to here, advanced, limits, you can see that it defaults to 2 steps. Defaults to 2 steps, which is what the shots currently have. It has the start temperature and end temperature of pre-infusion. And then it automatically copied the weight in cup from the shot. Okay, and that will hopefully work. So now advanced shots will have all the same capabilities that normal shots do, and more. There was a question about iOS port. What I have working, I demoed it on an Instagram video or social media in general, is if we plug a small little device into the back of this machine, the user interface, say this, can run on that computer and then be accessible as a web page. And that works really nicely on any computer, any web browser, and it also works on iOS. Quick little demo here where I want to show you the decent Espresso machine application running on a Macintosh and on an iPad. Here's the app running in my web browser. This is Chrome, and you can see the way this is working is I've got the application here and I've got full control over it, and the speed of the interface is really okay. And when I go to start an espresso, the screen refreshes pretty nicely, and I can zoom while it's happening and get real-time view. So over here on my iPad, I'm going to open up the same thing. I hit zoom here and it goes to full screen. So here's the espresso we just had, and you can notice it's actually happening on both of these. These are echoing each other, and the interface is fairly fast as well here, and responsive, and you've got full control. Basically what we've done here is take the tablet app that's running on Android, we're running it on a computer. It can be Mac, Windows, Linux, whatever, and it sends it out as a web page, which you can then view on any web browser. So an iPad, Android, Windows, any computer, even your TV if you want. Anything with a web browser can now talk to the decent Espresso app, and this is coming soon. So that is the plan for iOS porting, is that you'll plug a box in the back of the machine, and then there will be eventually a dedicated app for iOS, but all it will be is what's called a web view, which is to say it'll just launch Safari full screen and automatically connect to that app running. And the reason I want to do that is because a key feature of this ecosystem is openness. Okay? Now, Android's got its problems, but openness is not one of them. Anyone can write an app, and that's why we're able to do this, and I don't have to get Google's permission. Now, with Apple, that is not the situation. If I write an app and Google doesn't like what I've done, then Apple will just ban it. And we've got lots of plans. Maybe we want to sell coffee beans through this thing. I don't know. Well, I'd have to get approval through Apple, and I'm not into that. So I'm also not into Apple deciding one day they don't like us, they pull the app, all your computers, all your tablets lose the app, and then you scream at me because Apple has pulled our app. So I am not giving up power to be on the Apple Store. I want to be really clear about that. We're going to make a web app, and the advantage of the web app is that when you go, for example, settings, app, skin, and there are all these skins that are here, that is not allowed on an Apple, right? You cannot have third-party stuff running on your tablet. And this is one of the great things about our ecosystem is that we have really good skins. Damien's skin, the upcoming Metric skin, from Barney, we have the Spence's dark skins, and I do not want to give those up. So the plan for the iOS port is a web app that you can then view on your iOS, so you still have the full functionality despite the fact that you're in the closed ecosystem of Apple. So that's my rant and solution to that. I don't have the link quickly here, but you'll see the latency for the app is really good. The way the app works remotely is as a MP4 interactive stream. And that is something that works in all current browsers. And it just feels like you're using the app, but you're in a web browser. And you can use a computer, use any device you want. I released new profiles because on the Zoom here, I guess 2 weeks ago, I did some manual controlled espresso here. And if you want to do completely manual controlled, then you need to turn off the profile. You need to do a profile that has no water flow so that you can control it here. Now, the group head controller will do either pressure profiling or flow profiling, whatever the current mode is. I want to show you then what these profiles are. So if you go to settings, presets, you have to unhide it because they're hidden profiles. And then here we have manual flow control for the group head controller, and manual pressure control for the group head controller. And now I go back here and I have manual pressure, okay? And that's a pressure shot, and the pressure shot with no water at all. Okay? And why don't I do that? So I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll tap here, start the espresso. And now, boom, nothing, because we're on no pressure. Okay? So now I'm emulating like the Rocket R9 machine, which is a pressure profiling machine. And if I put my finger here, you can hear the water coming up. The flow rate's really high because it's trying to build pressure, okay? Because I don't have a coffee puck in there. So now the same thing for here, pressure, manual flow control, like so. Let me start that. Now this will be more calm, right? So when I was asking for 1 bar, well, I was trying to get 1 bar, but it couldn't because there's no counter pressure. So the flow was going up really high in the previous shot. This is manual flow control. And now I'm going to 4 mils per second, 6 mils per second, 8 mils per second, let go, and flow immediately stops. Okay? So for example, if I want to do a shot that was like Italian style with a fast pre-infusion, I'd start at 0, and then let's say I would hit 8. And there it is, putting out 8 mils per second. And then the puck would saturate, and I would let go, and let's say I count 5 seconds now. This is what I used to do on my E61, is count 5 seconds off to pre-infuse. And now let's do 2 mils per second, which would be a kind of normal flow rate. Okay? So that's me making a completely manual espresso with the flow profiling. And you can see this is the insanity of what I just did. Okay, tap to zoom it. So we had our pre-infusion, and then we rose the flow way up, and then we had a pause here for the pre-infusion to bloom, and then we blasted the puck some more, and then we paused, and then we had an extraction. So that's quite cool that you can do a manual shot, and you could now totally program this. If that actually tasted good, make that something that the machine did automatically for you, or just have fun. By the way, this view here is very similar to what you might find on the Smart Espresso Profiler software by Gabor and Miklos. They have a modification for lever machines that lets you see pressure, and they use an Akai scale to watch flow, and they are getting their group head controller on their machine and porting SCP software to the Decent. And I don't know exactly how long it'll take, but that will be a free upgrade. So that will be something that it'll just be a package you can download and install, and it'll be a way to make shots in this kind of mode, but emulating other machines, other profiles they've got, which is a lot of fun and very cool. Bugs wants her coffee. James Hoffman did a recent video about storage, and he talked about, the end conclusion was that with cupping, there wasn't a huge difference, but when making espresso, the shots that were stored under vacuum looked good, and the shots that were stored under any of the other techniques channeled horribly. Now, he didn't say so in the video, but that means they would taste bad. So if you watch James's video, it's just like a week ago, about storage, the net that I got out of it is that we absolutely want to vacuum store our beans if we're making espresso with them. And if you don't, your beans will channel. So with that in mind, I just wanted to show you, this is what I do. I take a backpack machine, and as soon as I get my beans, bean bag, I keep one to make right away, and the other 3 that come in the mail, I hard vac. I suck all the CO2 out, I suck everything out. In order for this to be like that. And 3 weeks later, they taste great. Oh, and then it's in the freezer. Okay, and when it comes out of the, when I want to use it, I take it out of the freezer a day early so that it defrosts, which is what I did last night. So this is, you know, because this isn't wet, beans are not wet, you can use like a $50, $60 air suction backpacker, and that will work. But that's my experience, and I recommend that as your coffee storage technology. Is there any video or article explaining how to do WDT in the right way? So first thing is, I'm not doing WDT, I'm doing what I guess I could call puck raking. And yes, Scott Rayo has a video on his Instagram. Where he shows his coffee puck preparation technique, and he does rake the top. Now, Stefan Reeves recently did an analysis of different puck preparation techniques, and I think what he found was that WT and his puck raking came in quite similar. I think WT, the way he did it, came out slightly better than the puck raking, but there was some metric, peak pressure. The puck raking gave us a higher peak pressure, but the WT gave him like 0.2% higher extraction yield. To me, very similar. I've always felt that WT done right is excellent, but a lot of people will take, I don't know, a toothpick and rake inside there and make the shot significantly worse. One of the keys for me of WT is to use something that doesn't compact the grounds. Now, if you go online, you go to YouTube and you search for WDT, you will find the top hits being some absolutely horrifying things that are totally wrong and have coffee grounds everywhere. So I would prefer that we take this up on diaspora, and people who are fans of WDT point to a YouTube video of it done right. Another question is, how do you convert a manually controlled shot into one that you would save? Okay, and the short answer is there is no automatic way to do that, because when you do this control with this here, you are controlling the flow and pressure with your finger, and there is tons of noisy data, right? The flow and the pressure is changing with every little micro change. And the espresso machine, first of all, is limited to 20 steps. So every little micro change would just fill up the 20 steps. Secondly, most of those micro changes are meaningless. They're not actually helpful for your coffee. Like at the start of mine, I went high, I went low, and stuff that doesn't make sense. So what you're really asking when you say, how do you convert a manually controlled espresso into an automatic one, is how would I author it? How would I go ahead making it? And let me show you how I would do it. What I would do is I would make the shot, and then I would save it as a God shot, because saving it as a God shot will save all the curves about it. So let's go ahead and do that. Hey, picture rinser works. Springing back nicely, and it's not going chug chug anymore. Okay. I am going to go into a manual flow mode. So settings, preset, manual flow control for the group head controller. Okay, now I'm going to hit start, and nothing's happening. Okay, so I'm going to do a default profile. So I'm going to do 4 milliliters per second for about 10 seconds. And now the puck would be compressing, and I would be slowing down to something like 1.5 mils per second. Okay, until I hit my desired weight. And let's say the puck is speeding up, so I'm going to just slow down, and then I hit stop. Okay, so I didn't have coffee in there, so there's not going to be any pressure. Nonetheless, here's our blue line. Let me tap to zoom it. Okay, so we did a 4 milliliters per second pre-infusion, followed by 2 mils per second, followed by 1 mil per second, followed by a stop. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is hit this heart icon that's here. Okay, and then I'm going to, in fact, I'll save it. Manual flow control with GHC. Let's just save it with that name. Okay, so now I hit here to make the keyboard go down. Okay, and if I go to settings and I hit OK, now I have cleared the previous coffee. Okay, but if I hit here, you can see there's the previous coffee there. Okay, that's what I just did as my profile. Now, a couple things. One is, let's see if this works. Okay. Cool, it's working. Okay, so here we are. Okay, and now, just like the Smart Espresso Profiler, I can go and do okay. And I am trying to follow the line that's here. Okay, so this is the most natural way to do advanced shots, is to just follow the existing shot that you made. And then down to 1. And then stop. Okay, so there you are. I'm going to tap to zoom. So you can see the faint blue line was the shot that I made manually that I really liked. And the dark blue line is my attempt to imitate it fairly successfully. Okay, so that's the first thing, is if you want to just imitate manual shots and do it over and over again. This is very much what the Smart Espresso Profiler software does, only it's more optimized for this workflow. Okay, now if I want to create this shot in an automated way, first of all, this is why I don't want to automatically convert the shot with software, is the first 8 seconds are garbage, right? There's nothing going on that I actually want there. I didn't start. So 4 mils followed by 2, followed by 1. Okay, the easiest thing, this is actually not, this is a 3-stage espresso, so this is really not complicated. This is a flow controlled shot, so I'm going to hit plus flow, okay, and my pre-infusion here is going to be at 4 mils per second. Okay, I'm going to turn off, oops, yeah, turn off the automatic exit, and it was 10 seconds. Okay, so there's my first step, and then I went to 2 mils per second for 20 seconds, like so. I think it was actually like 15 seconds. All right. And then I declined down to 1 mil per second for not that long. All right. So now I've made my profile. Let's see how close it is to the real thing. So I hit OK, and I hit go. Oops. By the way, that's what happens if you use a tablet on version 1.3. It tells you you have to put the group head. Okay. Now let's see how close mine is. Now it's offset because I don't have the 10 seconds at the beginning where nothing happens. And then I drop. Oh, it looks like the flow rate was a little lower. It was 1.5 mils per second at that last stage. And now we're going to drop. Okay, and it looks like I also made this section a little too long and not slowing down enough. So there's the 2 mistakes. This is actually, the last stage is 0.5 mil per second, and this is 1.5. So I go back here, there. All right, and this was a little shorter. All right, attempt number 2. So there's a few things that are different. The notable ones are, A, my pre-infusion was longer, but this last one, see how this went slowly down as opposed to suddenly down? And that's because this shot, this profile is set by default to smoothly go from one flow to another, not quickly. Now, I can't make that change in that little wizard, but I'll show you how to do it using an advanced shot. So first thing I'll do, though, is make that pre-infusion just a little shorter. So we match that. And now I'm going to go to plus and hit advanced. Now what's happened is I've just copied that shot that I made easily using the wizard, and now I can do an advanced shot. And the reason I want to do advanced is the last step is set to smooth. But actually when I did it manually, it was not. So I've tapped it, and now it's gone to fast. Okay. Now we should be pretty close to my manual shot. Okay, you can see my pre-infusion time is closer. Now I've made it too short. And see, nice fast drop. See how that happened there? And now it really looks like my manual shot. So I've now made my own profile that really mimics what I did manually. And if that tasted great, great. I do want to mention actually one thing that was slightly annoying. And with the shots, you notice here at the very beginning, the flow rate was high and then it immediately dropped down to very low. Now, the reason for that is because our heater test is currently set to 4 mils per second. So the heater test was doing 4 mils per second, the latch opened up, and then the shot was told to immediately drop to 0. But there was a little bit of water still happening from the heater test. So if I want to minimize that, I would go to Machine, Calibrate, More, and here under this heater test flow rate, I would drop this way, way down to like 1 mil per second. There still has to be some water at the start of the shot in order for the machine to know that the machine's ready to do its thing. Okay. So actually, I think we could probably actually basically do 0. 0.5 is the lowest that the machine's going to let you do, and a timeout of 1 second. So what that's going to do is have a heater test at the beginning that is essentially nil, right? It's going to be 0.5 mils of water. So let's actually do that and see if that works. You hear the machine refilling. That's new in the new firmware. When the machine goes to sleep, it automatically refills. Now, the reason it does that is because it knows that you're there. You just put the machine to sleep. Refilling is inherently a dangerous operation, right? It's water flowing. People have heard about refrigerators and their freezers, ice machines breaking and flooding their houses. Well, we didn't want that to ever happen. So unlike a freezer that will make ice when you're not there, this machine will not refill its tank unless you're there. So that's always been the case. But what we do now is when the machine goes to sleep, we know you're there, we refill on the spot. Much better than in the morning, the machine wakes up automatically. It doesn't know if you're there because you're next door sleeping. So it doesn't refill automatically when it wakes up. Okay, that's a safety, but it did mean a lot of people would wake up and find they have to add water, and that was annoying. So that's a nice tweak on 1.3. Okay. That totally worked. Look at that now, right there. We had virtually no water start at the beginning. So that's how I was able to just tweak that. So if I do a manual start, the test was using almost no water, and so almost no water starts there. So that's an interesting power that we've just obtained by getting access to that heater test stage before the espresso starts. That's allowing us to make a little bit better espresso.